The UFC has a problem.
Oh my.
Their champions are no longer fighting.
The champions are inactive. Fighting once a year just ain't good enough for a UFC champ.
And right at the center of this burning issue, there is one man who claims this.
But I come in for everybody, kill everybody! Ah!
From fighting everybody on a moment's notice to this.
Inactivity in the case of Khamzat Chimaev has completely destroyed his hype, career, and aura.
Now fans claim that he is boring.
Chimaev, dude, the first guy to win a championship without causing any harm.
That he scams people.
There is one crypto coin about me, they call it Smash.
And he hangs around with warlords. So is any of this true?
Nobody can stop me! If I die in the cage!
Well, before there was ever a middleweight champion, there was a nobody on the regional scene.
He makes his professional debut tonight. Khamzat Chimaev!
Khamzat enters his first professional fight, calm and ready. He is 3-0 as an amateur, all finishes. This is his time. With ease, Chimaev would take down his opponent in the first round, years of wrestling at an extremely high national level at his back, and from there, it was dominance. His second professional fight is more of the same, but even still, no one knows his name.
Khamzat.
Khamzat was brutal in the cage, hard, grizzled, fearless, and there is only one type of childhood that can make a man so strong.
Tough time when I was young. I remember that stuff. It was after the war.
And Chechnya is totally different when you grow up in the war.
Without food and tough time with my mom, my family, my dad.
Det är därför kanske alla tjetjenska fighters och dagestanska fighters, vi har sett många, det är svårt liv kan man säga.
My life teach me to be a hard person, you know. Went through many things and then we moved to Sweden, tried to find some good life, you know.
Khamzat would be lucky enough to be able to immigrate to another country.
I moved here and they bring us to immigration. We get that one room. My sisters, me and mom, everyone's living in the same room.
A blessing to be taken into a nation not so scarred by war, fractured by political dissent. In the safety of a better home, Khamzat would find himself able to pursue sport, and from here, that incredible training that men from the Caucasus are so revered for on the mats would prove to be a dominating force in Sweden. Over 3 years, Khamzat would become a national champion, undefeated 24-0, and out of those 24 national outings, the man would only ever give up 8 points in total.
Wrestling for me was like hobby, you know. I was working on the security, I was sometimes wrestling and become like Swedish champion.
Which is just simply ridiculous. With 3 national titles and 3 gold tournament wins under his belt, Khamzat would be approached to try a new sport.
My friend, he said, come to the MMA training. I said, no, I don't want this MMA, not so good, but punch to the head, blah, blah. I find MMA, I said to him, I'm gonna make money. He said, I don't think you're gonna do that, but you can try it. So, yeah, let's go.
But it didn't come easy. Khamzat would train ruthlessly. It was his only mission in life. He had no money, scraping by, surviving off barely any food, even sleeping in the gym that he trained in.
I was in the gym, sleeping in the gym every day, 4 sessions, 5 sessions. Like
most people don't live in gyms, you know?
So how long did you live here?
almost 3 years.
2 years in that room.
Yeah.
When you're sleeping there, did you know that one day that you were going to become like a big fighter?
I knew always will become my time.
After going 2-0, Khamzat would be able to start earning better money by signing with Brave, and he was there to prove his worth.
Off we go in this one. Oh, there's the low kick.
He's out!
After 2 years of fighting in Brave where the competition was much tougher, Khamzat would cement his place as one of the best fighters at welterweight fighting out of the Middle East. He would in those 24 months snatch 4 victories, all by way of finish, KOs and stunning submissions alike. Now he was 6-0. It's quite the impeccable start to a career. Khamzat had certainly displayed enough skill and talent by this point in his career to be on the UFC's radar, and that opportunity for a main stage was certainly around the corner. On just 15 days' notice, Khamzat Chimaev would step in to replace Dusko Todorovic, a middleweight who had fallen out of his fight against John Phillips. Khamzat had found his not-so-perfect way into his dream organization, but it was far out in the Middle East, closer to home than those American cards. Although it was a weight class above where he had been fighting at for years, I'm not sure he was too bothered. He was just excited to be able to finally showcase his skills on the grandest platform the world of combat sports had to offer. And at a time where the world of sports was in disarray from the pandemic, there really were more eyes on the sport than ever before, and well, showcase his skills he did.
John Phillips plus 320, the underdog out of the southpaw stance in black. Khamzat. Oh, nice shot.
Look at that though.
That's it. Right back to where we left. That's it. So how do you feel, man? I mean,
Amazing. I want to fight next week.
Khamzat would absolutely destroy his opponent in just 1 minute into the second with a beautiful and slick submission. Although this was most fans' introduction to the man, he was about to do something that would put him onto the tips of every fight fan's tongue.
And this kid wants to fight every weekend, and he's not joking.
I said to Dana, I want to fight next week.
Obviously, in this climate, that's tough to do, but I love that shit, and I want to do it.
Rhys McKee would step in to face Khamzat on 10 days' notice. Khamzat had a lot to prove, and the pressure to make that point must have been huge.
There is Khamzat Chimaev against Rhys McKee. Division and straight away. Rated. See Khamzat shoots in and he's going to pick him up.
Khamzat would go on to steamroll Rhys McKee, picking him up, slamming him to the canvas, and finishing him with ground and pound at 3 minutes and 9 seconds into round 1. Khamzat landed 68 strikes to McKee's 0, pushing his 2-fight total of strikes landed versus taken at 192 to 2 punches. Khamzat was only punched twice. Social media erupted as fans posted the staggering 192 to 2 stat line, flooding timelines with memes, reaction videos, and declarations that this was some kind of Khabib 2.0. Naturally, thousands were calling the back-to-back demolitions the most dominant debut stretch that they had ever witnessed. Dollar signs were rolling around inside Dana White's head. I remember the buzz even now. His record-setting 10-day pierced the veil of what was normal. He was viral in all the best ways, and it was awesome to see. From living in a gym to the forefront of people's thoughts, it was quite the journey. But 10 days' notice wasn't enough for Khamzat. He wanted another quick turnaround after fighting twice in just 10 days, and he would get his wish granted. The UFC vet Gerald Meerschaert would step up to the plate in order to capitalize off the buzz of this phenom. The way that Gerald saw it was that there was no way Khamzat was actually that good, and this fight could just simply set him up for future ranked fights and still some of Khamzat's fans along the way. It was great matchmaking from the UFC for once. Gerald was no slouch, with over 40 fights to his name, a winning record, and a black belt in BJJ. It really was a trial by fire. I know I was excited going into the fight, I just don't think I was expecting it to go the way that it did.
He hasn't met real resistance, and I think that's going to be a big test.
How many times you lose your fights?
Oh, I've lost quite a few fights.
Blue belt, I'm gonna choke you out. You have to give me your black belt to me. If I choke you out, you will finish with this sport.
But I said to him, you like to talk too much? He said, yeah. I said, I'm gonna smash your face, chicken.
Trying to talk trash to somebody while you're wearing masks and walking in a different direction.
Because I say that, I'm gonna smash your face. How are you gonna stop that?
I'm sure you think.
How are you gonna stop that, yo? I want to beat somebody better than him. Now I'm gonna smash him.
I'm better everywhere. I'm better wrestling, I'm better grappling, I'm better in striking. How are we gonna stop me?
Chimaev straight on the pressure like he always does.
17 seconds was all it took. There was no takedown. There was no ground and pound. There was no BJJ put to the test. There was one punch, one knockout, and then, well, a superstar was born. These moments inside of the cage really are a point in time that define a man. That singular punch was the exact moment that blew every fight fan's mind around the world. Not only could Khamzat just absolutely obliterate men on the ground in unbelievably dominant fashion, but now men had to also fear the fact that he could just land one punch and end every dream a fighter ever had. Now that is terrifying. The buzz on the internet was truly insane. GIFs, shorts, video essays, breakdowns, reactions, you name it, millions of views, all comments in their thousands, an avalanche of likes. Khamzat had earned himself a fancy record to go along with his catapult to stardom, the fastest 3-fight winning streak in UFC history. Just 66 days to snatch 3 souls. The UFC had hit their jackpot big time, and there was no one happier than a smug Dana White. So the question was, what was next for this monumental hype machine? We didn't even know what weight class he actually even belonged in anymore. Well, that would be determined in quick order. Just a month later, it was announced that Chimaev would be back for the 4th time in 6 months to face Leon Edwards, a man who was due a title shot, but was currently unranked for various political reasons that are too much to get into in this video. But the British top contender was essentially bullied into taking this fight in order to be ranked again. It was an incredible jump in competition. Chimaev would be shoehorned in at ranked number 15, and so his first actually ranked fight in the sport would be taking on a guy with an 8-fight winning streak against the best welterweights in the world. But as quickly as it was put together, it would fall apart. Chimaev would test positive for COVID, pulling him from the fight, and then just 2 days later, the same would happen for Leon. The UFC would come back 3 weeks later to have the fight rescheduled for January of 2021, but again, a week after the announcement, Chimaev would pull out once more, due to complications with his COVID recovery. Then finally, the fight was once again scheduled for March of 2021, only to be cancelled once again in February due to COVID symptoms on Chimaev's part. So the question was, what the hell was going on with Chimaev?
Chimaev is still suffering from the effects of COVID. There's something wrong with his lungs. They're putting him on medication again.
Pain there, like when I blood, like when I come out sometimes. Breathe, like was fever. And when I breathe, I feel a pain in my chest.
It was really bad, you know. Now I started coughing, started feeling ill. He even went with an ambulance. Called me, he thought he was going to die. He was really bad, you know.
And I read it that he could be out all of 2021.
Because he refused to stop training when he had COVID. When he had COVID, he was just showing up at the gym and putting in 2.5-hour sessions and vomiting blood.
Do you think it stalls the momentum of Chimaev now? I mean, we don't know when he's going to return, but this guy was on absolute fire.
The one thing you have to look at right now is his health. Let's make sure this guy's healthy, get him the best care we can give him, and make sure he comes back and makes a full recovery.
I like think too much, you know, like think too much like about when I gonna be healthy, when I can fight, when I can go train, you know, like.
In March, Chimaev would unfortunately announce his retirement from MMA.
Doctor said to me, come in there, you have a cancer, man. That's why I said I'm retired. I didn't know what to say to my family. I didn't know what to say to the people.
I never scared about my life. I scared about what my mom gonna do after I die. You know, my mom, my brothers. Like, I started with this MMA, with it, you know, it's because of my family. I want to make some good life.
COVID had taken his dreams away from him, but there was still hope.
Then we check again. The other doctor said, no, it's not cancer, it's corona. It was hard. That's why I said that. Then went home to back Russia, and they helped bring a lot of doctors, and they helped me a lot there.
Surgery, I did operation here. So they took out some stuff, like, I don't know how to explain in English.
And through it all, there was one unlikely friendship pulling him through.
Ramzan? He surprised you with a Mercedes-Benz?
Yeah, actually, I went 3 times.
Kadyrov is a ruthless warlord, a terrible human responsible for the torture and death of gay Chechen men, multiple conflicts resulting in pain and suffering for many families. Khamzat's links to him have been scrutinized by many people and many outlets for obvious reasons.
Promise me just I'm gonna help you with being healthy. Promise me you come back to the cage. I said, okay, brother, we do it.
But what is relevant to this video is the fact that this close friendship that fruited during Khamzat's recovery was actually responsible for delaying his return to competition. The US wanted nothing to do with the man that had links to a designated enemy of the nation. Because I won't really touch on this relationship much more in this video, because my last video on Khamzat got demonetized for even talking about this bloke, which tells you how bad he really is, it's worthwhile noting that Khamzat has now distanced himself from the man, but the initial friendship is indeed questionable. Regardless, Kadyrov aided Khamzat, and he started to finally get better.
Like I said in the cage, man, if I'm still here till I die, I'm gonna be in the cage, man.
After months of a battle that seemed to never end, there was finally light at the end of the tunnel. There was hope. Chimaev was back, and he would be taking on Li Jingliang.
When I saw your name on the fight card, very happy. It's been a long time since we've seen you compete.
Now I'm back and I want to kill this guy and take my money. I enjoy.
People love this guy. It's going to be interesting to see how he bounces back after such a bad run of COVID.
How does your fight end on Saturday?
And I eat him up like I do always. 9 fights, 9 finishes.
Welcome back.
Leach is an absolute savage. That guy came here to fight and he came here to win, which is going to make the fight even that much more fun.
Khamzat's looking for a war, but he's not convinced he'll get one with Leach. Khamzat Chimaev is back with a real shot. That is it! The hype is real! Khamzat Chimaev! I got it for everybody! I'm the champ! I'm the champion!
Li Jingliang never stood a chance. From the very first second the cage door closed, Khamzat Chimaev exploded forward like a man possessed. He shot in for the takedown instantly, slamming the Chinese veteran to the canvas with terrifying ease. What followed was 3 minutes and 26 seconds of pure, unrelenting violence. Chimaev smothered Li on the ground, mixing heavy ground and pound with slick transitions that left the veteran gasping for air. Li tried to scramble, tried to create space, but there was none. Khamzat was everywhere, and at 3 minutes and 26 seconds of the opening round, it was over. A rear naked choke squeezed tight, and Li tapped. Another first round finish, and another statement. Khamzat's record now sat at 10-0, with 8 of those wins coming inside the distance. Like many, including the man himself, I had written off Khamzat during his long battle with COVID, an illness that took many people's quality of life from them. But him coming back and looking every bit as terrifying as he did during that insane 2020 run was just so inspiring to see, and the fact that he picked up Li like a child and carried him over to Dana White to talk utter shit was just, well, it was unbelievable.
Yelling crazy shit at me the whole fight. I don't know why, but basically just saying, you know, I'm going to fight everybody. I'll fight Brock Lesnar. I don't care who it is. You know, he's just yelling stuff like that.
10-0, 100% finish rates. You've taken 1 strike in your time here at the UFC.
He's got more wins in the UFC than he's been hit in the UFC.
The performance earned him another Performance of the Night bonus. There were no more questions about whether the time away had dulled his edge. The long months of uncertainty, the retirement talk, the health scares, it was all a distant blur in the rearview mirror. Standing in the octagon, he made it very clear that he was back, and the welterweight division had every reason to be worried. The question was, could he return to beating men in quick succession, or was that part of his fighting career over? Well, it's pertinent to the topic of this video, and it's something that we'll talk about extensively towards the end of this video, but for now, there was another fight. After proving himself against great competition in the form of Li Jingliang, it was now finally time to set him up against those in the top echelon of welterweight. I just don't think that people were expecting him to go from the top 15 all the way down the list to fighting the second best welterweight in the world at the time.
He's 10-0, super confident right now. And I know that because I've been there. I was 10-0 not long ago. I thought I was unbeatable until I faced a guy that was so much experienced than me. And I ended up getting my first loss. I know what he's feeling.
You know all the principles, all problems, bro. That's messing.
Scared boy, you know. I said to him yesterday, show his power.
I'm gonna kill this guy tomorrow. I'm gonna smash him.
Translator, please.
Of course, he's underdog. King is here.
Yeah.
He said, oh, he's mad. Oh,
yes.
Hit the table. See you Saturday, buddy.
Star power! Every now and again, an athlete comes along who captivates the attention of the entire sport. Enter Khamzat Chimaev. Got to try to control himself. There's a lot of hype behind this fight.
Oh, Chimaev heard him.
Oh, straight right hand, drops Burns. Powerful jab, sat him down.
Khamzat, du musst nicht mehr. Schluss hinter mir Hand! Schluss hinter mir Hand!
Ladies and gentlemen, after 3 rounds, we go to the judges' scorecards for a decision. All 3 judges scored this contest 29-28 for the winner by unanimous decision, and still undefeated, Khamzat Chimaev.
The fight is perhaps one of my favourite of all time. It was a true back and forth war that tested the heart and resolve of both men as they vied for dominance over one another. It was bloody, it was gutsy, but most importantly, it was just plain violence. Gilbert Burns did not give an inch, all that outside pressure of fans essentially writing his obituary before stepping into the cage was washed away as he realised he could go toe-to-toe with the UFC's latest hype job. But Khamzat proved himself in his very first trial. He stepped into the fire and came out the other side looking as impressive as ever. I'm not going to lie, when I watched the fight live, I had expected Gilbert to be declared the winner at the end, but the fight going either way was no surprise to me at all. It all came down to the third, and the third was as close as it could get, even inspiring the Weasel to come out and do his classic "Who really won" type video, and he would declare that it was Khamzat who truly deserved it regardless. Despite the war, Khamzat still impressed me beyond belief. Sometimes fighters can have that edge in almost every discipline, but without that essential ingredient of heart, all is reduced to naught. But who are we kidding? All Khamzat had ever known was loss and war. That forms grit and determination early in a young man's resolve. I rewatched this fight a couple of times in my research of this video, and it still is just simply spectacular. I guess the most important aspect of this whole thing was the fact that Chimaev had gone from the 11th ranked man in the world all the way to second, an historic jump in level of competition that we rarely see in the sport. He had now very quickly made himself worthy of a title shot, but the next man to face him was surprising to say the least. Leading into 2022, Nate Diaz had started to see his contract with the UFC come to an end. Behind the scenes, it always seemed like a messy affair, Nate rarely ever fighting, and when he did, it would often be in some strange matchup that were at odds with his standing in terms of fanfare. The Anthony Pettis and Leon Edwards fights come to mind. Well, no one was more surprised to find out that when Nate refused to re-sign with the organization, that they matched him up with not some fun and interesting stylistic matchup, but rather one of the most feared rising prospects, Khamzat Chimaev. At the time, Nate Diaz was slowly approaching 38 years old, coming to the end of a violent, bloodied and storied UFC career, whereas Khamzat was young, brutally hungry, and dominant in every position that Nate lacked. It was, to be frank, a terrible matchup, and almost every fan saw it for what it was, a layup for Chimaev, a big massive fuck you to the money bag that did not kneel. But what I like about life is that balance often returns to the scales. What was a pretty unfair card that saw legends about to be impaled, Li Jingliang and Tony Ferguson for further examples, was about to go up in flames, and from the ashes, a pay-per-view would rise that seemed far more appropriate. Khamzat, in the biggest moment of his career, on the biggest stage, and with the most amount to prove, was about to mess everything up.
Final fight on the UFC contract at T-Mobile, does it feel right?
I'm the champion of the whole UFC altogether, and I don't give a and what they got me doing right now is they're acting like I called for this fight, which I didn't call for, and I don't want, and didn't want, and still don't want, but I don't give a go fight anybody. Pressure's on him, he better finish me, because he's the next killer in town.
What do you think beating Nate Diaz is going to do for your career?
To be honest with you, I don't care, bro.
You feel like you're going to war this weekend?
Been feeling like I'm going to war for a long time.
Just get that money and go home and do some funny things and help somebody, I don't know. Be happy, yeah?
Ain't no one's killing me. You know what I'm saying? No one's taking me out.
I mean, a lot of people are thinking this is going to be almost like an untelevised level of beating, and I hope that's not the case. Nate Diaz is a guy that's always in the fight. This could be the point where Nate just cannot survive the whole fight.
All hell has broken loose.
178.5, the official weight for Khamzat Chimaev.
He did not even try to make weight.
There was a talk that the doctor forced the weight cut to stop. Once the weight was missed of Chimaev, a matchup with Diaz can no longer take place.
So that leads to the question, what happens now?
The new card now, we have Nate Diaz versus Tony Ferguson, and Khamzat Chimaev will fight Kevin Holland.
What are your thoughts about this fight moving from the Diaz fight to now you're fighting Kevin Holland because of the weight loss?
I don't care. I want to smash everybody. I come here to fuck everybody, no? I'm going to take it over now.
All right, well, good luck to you, sir. We'll see you tomorrow night. Khamzat Chimaev, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, that was a fast takedown.
I just took his right hand with pressure.
Khamzat Chimaev! I will censor this guy here. I'm going to come in for everyone. Nobody can stop me. If I die in the cage. I never leave that cage now. It's my home. I can take everything from you guys.
Kevin Holland didn't last long. It took Khamzat just 5 seconds to initiate his first takedown, and whilst Holland scrambled better than most, it was still only just over 2 minutes before he was eventually submitted with ease. Khamzat had never looked more impressive than in this fight. He was technically on another level. Whilst in other fights he had done it a lot quicker and a lot more dominant, what got me was the fact that Holland actually provided some resistance along the way to victory. But Khamzat had an answer to all, adjustments aplenty. There was no war this time like with Gilbert, there was just clean and decisive victory. Every escape attempted by Holland was met with masterful correction, and it would only go to further show that after watching the Nate Diaz and Tony Ferguson fight, which displayed phantoms of the legends that once haunted the octagon, that Khamzat would have completely and utterly destroyed Diaz. That nonsensical bout never deserved breath to its lungs. Despite how furious the UFC must have been with the Chechen native for screwing the pay-per-view, the fact was that out of all the drama, all the shake-up, it all only served to push Khamzat deeper into fame. All anybody could talk about was him, good and mostly bad, but regardless, they were talking about him. I remember videos getting well over 1 million views discussing the drama of UFC 279, which for the sport is quite rare to be honest, and at the centre of it all was Khamzat himself. Now all he needed to do was focus on turning all that negative buzz into something good with his next few fights. Fight fans are certainly fickle, but they do have short memories. After Khamzat's less than desirable showing at UFC 279, the UFC made it pretty clear to him that he would be finding himself heading up to middleweight in his next outing. Whilst he was unranked at the time, it was clear that he should find himself fighting at least in the top 15. Many men were considered by the UFC, but only one was actually willing to step up and face him.
What's up, everybody? UFC President Dana White. I'm here to announce that the card that everyone has been waiting for, we got it done. Abu Dhabi, UFC 294 on Saturday, October 21st. Khamzat Chimaev returns, and he will be facing Paulo Costa.
Chimaev, you need to do something, motherfucker. I stole everything that you had.
Khamzat Chimaev's hat.
This is Khamzat Chimaev gourmet Chechen hat?
Yeah.
He left his hat.
Yeah, that's what I told you that. Now. Oh my gosh.
Paulo Costa is a fan favourite for many reasons. He will most of the time put on exciting fights, but it's mainly his persona outside of the cage that keeps many hooked. He is a funny man, and one willing to put his all into the build-up of a fight. So if anything, Fight Week did promise to be exciting, since having an undefeated rise to the UFC title and subsequently losing his shot against Israel Adesanya, Costa's biggest problem had been his lack of actual fighting, only fighting once a year at most. He followed up his loss with a second against an orc who missed weight, and then managed to get himself back in the win column when he faced Luke Rockhold in his retirement fight. That proved to be one of the best fights of the year, and a worthy send-off for a former middleweight champion. At the time, Costa was still ranked 8th in the division, so Khamzat was staring down the barrel of a top 10 ranking in 2 different divisions, a rare feat indeed. All he had to do was show up, make weight, and perform. But this wouldn't be a Khamzat Chimaev story if something went to plan.
Paulo Costa has in fact pulled out of his fight with Khamzat Chimaev because he had a staph infection in that same elbow. And because that the doctors pulled him out of the fight.
Costa's hurt, all the rumors that are flying around, we got it done. So, the number 4 welterweight in the world, Khamzat Chimaev, is moving up the middleweight, and he will face the number 1 welterweight in the world, Kamaru Usman.
Are you prepared to compete this Saturday?
Absolutely. I think it's the one thing that I've always done. And I think it's the one thing that any great fighter or great champion does. And that's, you're always prepared.
I don't know what to say. Just come here to smash that guy, man. So respect.
You fight the same for me. It doesn't matter what I fight in big or small. I got to smash, man.
mountain wrestling is superior to U.S. wrestling. So I'm curious, what type of fight are you expecting from Khamzat if it does come to the wrestling?
I mean, we're not wrestling, you know, we're fighting. I've already said it before, I might not be the best striker, I might not be the best grappler, but when it comes to mixing it up, I'm the best in the world.
If you're the best, why you lost? Last 2 fights, you lost.
You're right, you know, but that's part of being human, and that's a lesson I guess I have to teach you.
After 3 rounds, we go to the judges' scorecards for a decision. Very clearly scored contest. 29-27, Chimaev. Vito Paolillo scores it, 29-27. And David Letheby scores it, 28-28. For the winner by majority decision, Khamzat Chimaev.
Coming in on 10 days' notice, upper weight class, and not even in a fight camp of his own, Kamaru Usman, the former welterweight champion, gave Khamzat Chimaev his toughest fight to date, some even thinking that Usman was robbed. Whilst I don't necessarily agree with that, what I do agree with was one of the judges that night who scored it a draw. I think that it was an extremely close and competitive fight, and I think that more than likely, a draw was the right call. But to be clear, Khamzat edging it out and walking away with the victory really is not a robbery at all, like many people were saying. What I will state though is that if this fight was 5 rounds rather than 3, then honestly, I don't think Khamzat stood a chance in the final rounds. He was completely gassed, which is odd considering he had a full fight camp and Usman did not, which only further muddied the waters of Chimaev's performance. If Usman had a full camp to prepare for this one, then holy smokes, he may have dominated, but they fought with what they had, and Khamzat walked away the victor, and that is all the history books will ever remember, not could-haves or would-haves. Khamzat, not through his own fault this time, had once again fought in a situation that made his placement in the organization less clear. He was a middleweight who had just fought a welterweight on short notice. This fight realistically meant absolutely nothing. It was a shame when his career was being hampered by strange circumstances. All we wanted to see was a rise that seemed legitimate, not this mess that had preceded him. Both men the night they fought may have been entirely unranked, but the members of the media still decided that it would be fair to honor Khamzat with the 11th ranked spot at middleweight, which, you know, makes no sense whatsoever, but here we are. I can understand that Khamzat was a terrifying force, but it did kind of go against all kinds of logic for rankings in the first place. Placing him so high without a victory against a middleweight to justify it was just ridiculous, and I hate it. Regardless, the UFC did their usual thing of just kind of trudging forward. With 2 wins at middleweight in the last 3 years, the UFC would place the Chechen man in a title eliminator bout of sorts. In March of 2024, it was announced that fan favourite Robert Whittaker would be taking on the undefeated man in a contest to take place in Abu Dhabi. Robert really was the man to test the mettle of Boers. Whittaker was a former champion and a perennial boogeyman of the division, second best only to Israel Adesanya, which is no discredit at all. Well, 9 days before the fight was due to take place, Chimaev would unfortunately pull out of their matchup citing a severe injury. It was a massive disappointment for sure. I, along with many fight fans, was excited to see what a real middleweight could do against Khamzat, and if Khamzat really was everything that we'd built him up to be in our minds. Robert would go on to knock out late replacement Ikram Alaskerov, who, after being knocked out by Khamzat all the way back in 2019, had gone on a 7-fight winning streak over 5 years, including 4 finishes. His signing to the UFC and subsequent victories seemed like the build to an inevitable grudge match between the 2 men who had danced the dance so many years ago. Whittaker put a stop to all of that discussion and restated his intention to face Khamzat later in that year.
We can settle this score another day.
Khamzat wasn't exactly having a good time of it though. Along with recovering from his injuries, he would find himself caught up in a rather embarrassing PR disaster that saw him at the center of a crypto scam. By this point, crypto rug pulls were no secret. Logan Paul and others had found themselves at the centerpieces of many viral videos from such men as CoffeeZilla, breaking down the huge amounts of monies that can be made in a rug pull scam. The problem is that a lot of money is made for not only those creating and minting the coin, in this case Smash Coin, but also those basically praying that it would be rug pulled in the first place and betting on it. Those caught up in the bloody aftermath, the victims, are unfortunately pulled in by the authenticity of a man at the vanguard, and Khamzat, this time, was that man who, in response to many of his fans trusting him with this coin, simply had to say that he had no idea and that he was embarrassed, which really doesn't cut the mustard in my personal opinion, because this man had been sponsored by Block Asset for many years. To just simply plead ignorance is such a shame. The damage to his reputation was massive. Just one look at his X profile would give you an insight to how many had turned against him. But this is the internet, and opinion changes daily, especially when a new fight gets announced. The controversy was left in the past, because Khamzat and Whittaker was rescheduled for a fight to take place on the 26th of October in Abu Dhabi. Khamzat was given the opportunity once again to fight his way back to the world title.
I'm not the same guy like everyone. My heart is different, man. I don't think about anyone like, oh, he's dangerous for me. Let them think about that. If I smash everybody, the belts will come. I'm the most dangerous guy. I fight with everyone, different divisions. Doesn't matter. Nobody can stop me.
Khamzat's a different beast. I give him half a chance, he'll kill me. But the higher the odds, the better I perform. And I'm at a point where I am nigh unbeatable right now.
He's been one of the best guys, but now it's my time to beat him. I can catch anyone with my takedown. It will be hard for him.
This isn't a wrestling match. We're fighting him. It's going to be a really hard start, but I think I'm just going to hurt him. I think I'm going to be too much for him.
Taking his time, maybe trying to get an elbow home right on the ear he lands. Still undefeated and likely coming to a title fight near you. Khamzat Chimaev is that good. Is that how strong that grip is that he got that choke?
There is no easy way to put the fact that Robert was absolutely manhandled by Khamzat. It took less than 15 seconds for Chimaev to shoot for the legs, and from there, Robert would be dragged into uncomfortable territory and complete odds with one of the most terrifying ground games in the sport. Khamzat would smother the Australian for just shy of 2 minutes before quite literally breaking Robert's jaw and teeth in a chokehold. The pictures of the aftermath were truly disturbing. Cracks and blood and dislodged teeth, juxtaposed against the tearful post-fight interview that called for peace on earth. Khamzat should never have been ranked at middleweight, and it's a hill that I'm willing to die on. The night that he stood across from the Reaper was genuinely his first attempt at a ranked opponent at 185 pounds, and well, the Chechen made it look easy, beyond easy, which just makes it so much more impressive. He made his bid for the middleweight title, and there was no way that he wasn't going to get exactly what he wanted. On May 14th, the UFC announced that the reigning middleweight champion of the world, Dricus du Plessis, would be defending his title against now number 3 ranked Khamzat Chimaev at UFC 319 in August of 2025. Boar's first shot at the title had finally come. After his emphatic back-to-back performances, speedrunning his way to fight fans' heart all the way back in 2020, it was genuinely expected that his presence in a title fight would come rather quickly. Alex Pereira levels of haste, but it was setback after setback and weight class jumps that had ultimately been his undoing. That man that had impressed us with his bloodlust and fearlessness to step in the cage at a moment's notice had waned rather quickly, now only fighting once a year at best. And often when he had the opportunity, it would be messed up by either his own accord or just simple fickle fate. But all of that was now white noise in the background of what was destined to be his shining moment, the culmination of years of hard work and dreams dreamt.
I don't care if I be undefeated or not, but whatever God wants, I'm ready for that. All the fighters talk. Nothing is gonna change here. Everyone has to fight in the cage anyway. So whatever he says, I don't care about. So I'm come here and to beat him up and take my money and go home.
Thanks for coming out today. We appreciate it. It's good to be back here. Who's got the first question?
Dricus, what do you think contributes to your success?
I think it's the fact that I go out there and I want to fight the best. This will mean to me exactly what it meant to beat every other guy before this. It's not about the opponent. It's not about who I face. It's about defending that belt. That's all that matters to me.
You know already, guys, who is the best, guys. It's my time. I take over as UFC, man.
The entire crowd is standing for our championship main event. Over 4 minutes of time spent fighting off of his back for Du Plessis.
Now he's attacking the lock a little bit.
Now, undisputed UFC Middleweight Champion of the World, Khamzat.
For his performance against Dricus, he was awarded the Performance of the Night bonus. Khamzat would land the second most ever strikes in a UFC fight, just behind Holloway and Whittaker. He did this whilst also maintaining over 21 minutes of control time. It was nothing short of dominant, and an incredible victory over a grizzled champion. But one comment I read put it best: I had never been more impressed and less entertained in a fight. Whilst Khamzat would land the second most strikes in the 30-year history of the company, only 37 of them were actually significant, which over a 5-round fight has got to be a pretty poor performance, to be honest. And then on top of that, out of 21 minutes of control time, the only submission attempt came from Dricus himself, and to be honest, that was the most exciting moment of the entire fight anyway. I'm not one of those people who think that wrestling is boring in the UFC. I quite enjoy watching grappling exchanges and the intricacies of a dominant wrestler being able to get another man or woman to the ground, and the mastery of how they hold them there. But I've got to say, this fight was unbelievably lackluster. I've never seen a man get repeatedly put in a crucifix position and then pay absolutely no consequences for being so compromised. That bloodlust that had seen Khamzat rise to the top of the sport was disappointingly absent during this bout, which made a lot of people, including myself, extremely dismissive of the performance. It's hard to be critical by just the sheer dominance of the whole thing, but how I feel is how I feel, and it was just not what I was looking for. The fact remained, however, that Khamzat had fulfilled that suspicion that had been whispered ever since his first walk to the octagon, that he was a man worthy of a strap one day. That day was here now. I never would have suspected, however, that his legacy would be so up and down, so storied as it were, but such is this game. It's full of surprises, and I have a feeling with the announcement of the upcoming match against Sean Strickland that there are more surprises to come. I do wish to see that lethal spirit arise once more in the Chechen though, because when he is on, he can be so goddamn entertaining to watch. With all that said, the UFC has a problem, and I think it's clear for all to see, and there is no better example of this than the man at the center of this video, Khamzat Chimaev. I'm of course talking about fighter activity, in particular their champions. The sport has become infested with men who reach the top and then only fight once, and if we're lucky, twice a year. This has now, for the last 5 years, created a backlog in divisions where the best simply are not fighting the best. Mix that in with champions that are consistently jumping up or down in weight classes, and now things are just becoming confusing. Another layer of complexity is men like Chimaev, who are pushed unnaturally to the top of a weight class simply because he sells tickets. Now he obviously deserved to be there, but beating one middleweight and then getting a title shot after only 14 professional fights is undoubtedly a manufactured contender. He proved the UFC right, I get that, but it doesn't take away from the fact that other middleweights are more deserving of a shot and were snubbed in that process. We have now, in this new era of the UFC, traded divisional storylines and rivalries, such as the Team Alpha Male debacle, for individual storylines. What that has done is put emphasis not on the overall movement of 50 to 100 men in a weight class that make all fights in that space more meaningful combined, but put the entire weight of selling cards on men who turn up at best twice a year. It has started to erode the meaning of the sport, certainly of the course of my time watching it, and it makes belts pointless and rankings even less so. Khamzat has become the direct point of criticism for this growing thought amongst fight fans, and he essentially did it to himself. He burst onto the scene claiming that he would smash everyone and anyone, and at any time, growing to a superstar in just 66 days and 3 fights, an impressive feat to say the absolute least. But through illness, political ties, injuries, and strange matchmaking, Khamzat has become a man who fights once a year, and unfortunately, in his last fight, won the belt through a pretty boring decision that made fans lose their minds, and now Khamzat has waited 8 months to wash the taste of that out of fight fans' mouths. I'm not one of those people who think that he's boring. I've watched all of his fights and the man is as far from boring as humanly possible, but fight fans have short memories, and it's easy to see that in all of his social media posts since winning the belt. People have certainly turned on him, but that wave of negativity had started to turn well before the championship matchup. People were already starting to wane for the man. He started being strange and rude and difficult around people. He started hanging around with warlords, being caught up in crypto scams, and finally, people's biggest problem with him being that he just simply doesn't turn up to the cage. It's hard to be a fan of someone who just doesn't seem to want to even fight, and then when he does, he talks a big game as if he would do the opposite. So I do sympathize with fans who have grown less fond of the man over time. Whilst I do not understand the criticism of him being boring, I do think that it's symptomatic of fans growing tired of wrestling heavy fighters dominating the sport. But what I do believe is that more than likely Sean Strickland is going to bring that wolf back out of him, and perhaps as Khamzat is tested over the next few years by actual middleweights, we will see some tough and grizzled performances out of him again, reminding us why he is indeed one of the most dominant and impressive fighters out there. I just hope that it happens more often than it currently does. It's easy to look at a record and see pure dominance, a Wikipedia page full of green, of broken records and glory, but on closer inspection we do indeed find contention to that thought. Khamzat has been pushed to his limits in many fights, against smaller men, against men coming in on short notice, and his quick rise to the top of this game, particularly at middleweight, may be obscuring a grim reality. We will see how his career pans out, but I have a sneaking suspicion that that green will bleed, as it does, eventually, for all men.